These days in San Diego, I'm Dan Irwin for KPBS Radio. Well, I'm going to say it again, information superhighway. Aren't you getting tired of that term? And maybe you feel like you're stuck at the signal trying to get onto the on-ramp. Anyway, when they start talking about fiber optic connections into your home and interactive networking opportunities, that sounds pretty good. But what usually comes next is like a sales pitch for 500 cable channels full of who knows what, or a chance to play a popular video game or to send some silly messages directly from your house. In other words, expensive services to fill up endless hours of time with leisure activities. Is that all the new communication technology is good for? Call us at 594-8255. What about organizations that are trying to do good works and provide vital services for the people in their communities? Many of these nonprofit organizations are understaffed, and while facilities and help may be available, basic communication can be an obstacle. Can you see how technical innovation in communication can be used to benefit people? Call us at 594-TALK. David Almada is computer coordinator for Catholic Charities in San Diego. Beginning 10 years ago as a volunteer, David now supervises a novel network using a Xenix BBS system. Recently, he developed a database for electronic mail merge and is now installing programming for Catholic Charities of Los Angeles. Mary Grosse is director at the Resource Center of United Way of San Diego. The Resource Center has been collecting comprehensive information on more than 3,000 health and human service programs for more than 20 years and has published the Community Service Directory Directions for the same period. Mary Grosse is also current president of the California Alliance of Information and Referral Services. Mary Grosse of United Way and David Almada of Catholic Charities both joined me in the KPBS radio studios today. Welcome to you both.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Getting down to basic issues like bed availability. Traditionally, how have opportunities been missed through ineffective communication? David?
Well, in my experience, looking at what bed availability, my share of it, I've seen United Way has very good contacts for that. They go ahead and have communication over the phone with the agencies, the major ones. But there's always like little shelters that might have 2 beds available or something in Escondido or in Oceanside. And sometimes those are hard to communicate, so those kind of small openings or 1 or 2 beds that become available get posted on the system I run, which is an electronic bulletin board system.
Maybe for the first time then?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mary, what about bed availability?
United Way's info line has the capacity to track bed availability, and we do that on an ongoing, updated basis so that as callers call in, people without shelter, we know exactly what is available at that point in time. That allows us to get people into the shelters and use the shelters to their capacity.
What kind of technological guys are involved?
We currently use a program that was designed for us that is kind of like a reservation system in terms of we track every shelter and every bed that they have available and post that on the computer system that the phone specialists use, and they know at any point in time when they take a call what beds are available and what shelters are full.
What kind of equipment are you using?
We run that program on an IBM AS400, which is a larger than a microcomputer or a PC. It's what's called a mini computer.
Are you able to keep enough equipment in stock to be able to cover your needs?
Currently, we have enough equipment and not enough staff.
Not enough staff, right. What are some of the ways that, as I suggested earlier, that this kind of that a little bit better program can actually save staff time and help you get by with a smaller staff or with basically an understaffed situation?
Well, I think the more people are able to communicate with each other, the more current the information is, and the more widespread the capability to respond to the problems is. In other words, the capacity of the community as a whole. If they're all technologically current, as they say, we can all respond to the needs better, as opposed to, maybe one agency like ourselves or other agencies serving as the hubs. The information still needs to be gathered at a hub, but it allows people to have access to the information more easily.
David, when you were putting together the system at Catholic Charities, I understand, I guess it was with regard to the electronic mail system, that one of your concerns was having a system that may have to do with donated equipment, that may not necessarily be, I shouldn't say compatible, but wouldn't be identical to everything in the system. You don't buy everything all at once.
No, that is a very key issue because you see a lot of the newer 386 systems and 486, and now the Pentiums come out, and then now Intel's talking in the news, in the national news, that they're coming out with something faster than the Pentium, which runs at 150 megahertz. So you have old computers that are PCs or XTs that came out back in the 80s that we still use to access the system, which is a regular bulletin board system. And Macintoshes access it too. So you're able to send, let's say, from a Macintosh, an electronic mail message to a user that's on an IBM PC in Escondido, for example, and you're able to do that kind of communication.
I wanted to bring up an idea. I spoke with you just before the show began about the way social service organizations operate and how they were born. The idea I posed was that they're a product of the Enlightenment and the Industrial Revolution, 150, maybe as much as 200 years ago, in the way they function on a storefront basis, on a village basis, on a maybe an urban basis, but only within a neighborhood, and how obviously we don't live that way anymore. It's been difficult for social service agencies to change the way they do business, but just using San Diego County as an example, you've mentioned already a couple of times, you can keep communication going pretty good within downtown San Diego. Once you get into the central part of the county or the north part of the county, Escondido, it begins to seem like, well, that's the next village over. And it's harder to think of that as part of our network. You see what I mean?
Absolutely. And I think it's going to continue to change, and I think it's providing social service agencies a challenge that is unfamiliar to them in terms of communicating with each other in a way that is not as personal as it used to be, and in a way that kind of forces us all to use technology in a way that is not comfortable for a lot of people, but is absolutely necessary in terms of providing effective, efficient service to people in the community.
Do you get, David, do you get a certain amount of maybe resistance from longtime volunteers who kind of like the old boy network way of doing things?
Yeah, in some respects, yes. It depends on the individual person. So some people are really enthusiastic about being able to communicate with the people this way because the phone is busy or the fax is busy and they can't get through. So they try doing it this way and say, well, that was easy. For example, Neighborhood House Association, I was talking a while back with Ellen Brown. She mentioned, how do I encumber funds for the FEMA with the computer and so forth? And I got a response back from her and said, oh, it's that easy, after I talked with her doing it on the computer. And once they do it, and they do it once or twice, they're all, they say, wow, it wasn't that bad. But they think it's something that's going to, oh no, it's going to beep and it's going to cut me off and I'll erase the computer or something. Depends on the individual person. Some people have a lot of experience.
Could you explain a little bit about, and this is, I know, a lot of the work that you do, use the term encumbering funds. Mm-hmm. What exactly is that?
Well, for instance, at Catholic Charities downtown, they were doing encumbering of funds where if their house burned down and there was federal management emergency assistance monies available for several people, they could call in information about the person, like their social security number and so forth through the computer to a person that would be at Catholic Charities that would check to see if they're eligible for that. And then, therefore, they would make out a check for the person right there. And it was, instead of having to fax over or mail over information about the documents, they were able to very quickly through the computer assess whether a client was eligible or not and stuff. Along those lines.
My guests in studio are David Almada. He's computer coordinator for Catholic Charities in San Diego. He's been working on setting up their communication system for 10 years now. Also, Mary Grosse is director of the Resource Center of United Way in San Diego, which publishes the Community Service Directory Directions. Mary is also current president of the California Alliance of Information and Referral Services. Our number is 594-8255. That's 594-TALK. We're talking about how new information technologies, communication technologies, are affecting the way nonprofits, social service agencies do their business, and we're really seeing the very beginning of something that has very, very profound implications, and we'll be talking about those this hour. Call us at 594-8255. Now, speaking of profound, David, I understand you were instrumental in, about a year ago, getting the Internet set up at Catholic Charities.
Yeah, actually, I've been getting phone calls and electronic mail from Moscow and from Argentina and all over the world. We got started, well, actually, I got started back in February of 93, which was before the White House got online and all these other people started, and all these press releases came out and everything. And the users on the system had access to Internet back in May, which was right around the time that the White House went up. And therefore, I had a head start on a lot of people in that. So there's been a lot of attention to it, and I've been getting a lot of response for it. And it's a very valuable tool that wasn't there before that's changed. I've seen it change myself in the form of, you used to have to pay $10 an hour to access, let's say, HandsNet or CompuServe, Prodigy, different systems to get to some of the national sources for nonprofit agencies. Now I see them posted for free on some of the systems, on list servers that are available for free. Technically, if you're savvy enough about Internet, you can get an Internet account, sign up for a United States nonprofit list server, and get all that information and things about funding and so forth available for free.
And the phone line's never busy.
Right, and the phone line's never busy.
Now, is Catholic Charities able to sign up on the Internet just as an individual would for the standard monthly rate?
Well, what we did is we have a connection to our computer that goes directly to a computer that has a T1 access line to the Internet. And what we provide is Internet mail. So you're able to send messages from, let's say, from United Way, info line. You can send a message and post it on the system, and it would go to either CompuServe or Prodigy, or it would go to a user on HandsNet in Sacramento, for instance, and it wouldn't cost them anything. They could send 600 messages in one day, and it wouldn't cost them anything extra. That's the value of this tool.
Mary, how does United Way use Internet?
Currently, not at all.
Mm-hmm.
That is changing, though. They are getting electronic mail in-house and several other things. One way that Internet probably will be most useful to me personally via the statewide organization is that at state level we will be able to do a lot more and spend a lot less just via Internet. So I think in some respects we're slow to pick up on the Internet trail, but I believe that we'll be right there around the corner.
As the president of California Alliance of Information and Referral Services, how do you, maybe let's get a little philosophical for a moment and look into the future a little bit and see how social service agencies, nonprofit organizations see themselves and how they may start to see themselves a little differently as these various services come online.
I think what they're struggling with right now is kind of a dual identity. They have that identity that you mentioned earlier of being there at the storefront and providing service, but realizing that the world is changing and they're going to have to change with it. One of the changes that we're seeing at the state level is the need to be able to have information across the state, not just information about what happens in the local community. So, for instance, a corporation who has downsized and now provides all of their human resource activity out of one location, let's say here out of San Diego, they need information about services available for their employees throughout the state. And currently the only way they have of doing that is calling each individual county and finding out if they publish, for instance, a directory like we do here in San Diego, which means then as they have need to make referrals for their employees, They have to access all of these different information sources.
In the past, that would be kind of like those obscure library services that have telephone books from all over the country.
Absolutely. And what if we're able to provide this information on a statewide basis, it would be, as they say, seamless, in the sense that you would just log on to the computer and find out information about Santa Rosa. You would just find whatever resource information was available in Santa Rosa. You wouldn't necessarily need to have all of these various information sources. It would all be available to you online. And that would save people an enormous amount of time.
David, just to use the example about Santa Rosa, say, for instance, let's reverse the situation, that Catholic Charities is going to be receiving someone from Santa Rosa. They're in Santa Rosa now, and you're getting communications on email about these people and finding out what their needs are, and they'll be arriving in San Diego shortly. Am I working on a realistic scenario of something that might happen?
I think towards the future you will be. At present, you could do that. If someone, let's say at a Catholic organization in Santa Rosa, wanted to send Catholic Charities downtown an electronic mail message with information about a person they're referring or will be coming into town, they could post that, and it would be delivered to our computer system downtown with the bulletin board system.
Admittedly, that's not something that would happen very often.
No, it's not, but it is possible. And the thing is, communicating and informing the people that the capability is there is a key issue, and that's possible, would open up a window to them to see, well, I don't have to spend 85 cents for that long-distance call to send that fax. I could just internet mail it. And because of their exposure, they're not aware that they have access to these things. That maybe they've been exposed to using HandsNet, which would cost them $10 an hour, or CompuServe, the same thing, $8, whatever they charge.
And the kind of people you're serving, that's like out of the loop.
Right, exactly. So it just comes through that.
My guests in studio are David Almada. He's computer coordinator for Catholic Charities in San Diego. He's been computer coordinator since 1985, and he'll be giving a demonstration of Internet services, email, audio-video conferencing, and international resources this afternoon from 4 to 5 at Catholic Charities on Mission Gorge Place. We'll be giving a phone number out a little bit later that you can contact if you're interested, if you're involved in nonprofit enterprises. It'd be a good demonstration to see. Also, Mary Grosse is director of the Resource Center, the United Way of San Diego. Our number is 594-8255. Let's take a call now and speak with Mitch in Mira Mesa. You're on These Days.
Hi, thank you very much for taking my call.
You bet.
First of all, I would like to acknowledge David for doing such a great job of coordinating the computer facilities there. And I'd like to make people aware of a way that they could get educated about how to access this electronic superhighway. And that's why there's an online users group meeting that's going to be this March 24th at 7 p.m. down at the Office of Education, 6401 Linda Vista Road, and we're going to basically be available to take first-time computer modem users and walk them through an internet connection and basically answer all their questions about how to do that. And also another service I'd like to...
Could you mention the time for that again?
Sure, it's 7 p.m., and that's March 24th. Once again, the address is 6401 Linda Vista Road. That's the Office of Education.
Right, I know that.
Just right by the USD there.
Yeah.
Also, I'd like to mention I provide a free online job search service where people can log on to my computer, look through federal, state, and local listings for jobs, all at no cost. And they can access that via dialing 689-1348 using their modem.
Okay. David, you want to respond?
Yeah, I've been to one of their groups some time ago, and I found it very informative. They had a lady there who'd written a book about Internet at one of their groups. I'd also like to mention, though, there's also the San Diego Computer Society, which is a nonprofit agency that has helped me a great deal over the years as well.
It's true. Actually, we're working in conjunction with them. You know, they're giving us some of their facilities, and people that do their training are also working with this online users group. So
that's a very good deal.
good. Well, thank you very much for taking my call.
Thanks for the call, Mitch.
Bye-bye.
Our number is 594-8255. We have an open line now. It's a good time for you to get through. We're talking about social service agencies, nonprofit organizations, and how they are at the very threshold of using the absolute latest technology to not only do their jobs more efficiently with always very limited staffs, but also how this new technology is beginning to change the shape of how social service organizations see themselves. Call us at 594-TALK. I get the impression, David, that the people that Catholic Charities routinely communicates with, you mentioned United Way several times, but also a lot of the other religious social service organizations in San Diego, Episcopal Community Services, just naming one, lots of others. Could you describe maybe the interfaith aspect of the communication that you have?
Yeah, I've found, and I've heard this from several other dioceses and in my visits to other areas in California, that San Diego is very unique and very good about having partnership or communication between the agencies. As an example, our bulletin board system, having users from all kinds of like the AIDS Foundation and different type of agencies that have been on the same computer system, it shows that they all want to cooperate and work together. They don't want to repeat services and duplicate their work. They want to help the people. They all have that in mind. They want to help the public and the community. And I've heard from other people that they're very impressed with what we do here in San Diego. Those have been my personal experiences with what other people's impressions of our area.
Well, Mary, part of your work must be to avoid duplication of services as well in working with all these various organizations.
Absolutely. And it's always our quest to provide barrier-free access to information. There are a lot of people out there that need help, and anything we can do to make that possible is part of our goal. And I think that you as an individual or anyone having access to information is vital, but there's a lot of fear sometimes associated with where do I find what I need, and I don't know what to call, what I'm looking for, I'm embarrassed about my situation, or I'm fearful, etc. And I think people having access to information in an easy manner is something that we all strive for, and to make it possible for people to find help is something that we feel very strongly about. So I think technology is going to provide us a lot of opportunities to do that in a way we haven't been able to do before, because now people have had to either go to agencies or call them on the telephone. But as technology develops, people will be able to use their computer in their home and find out lots of information without ever discussing it with another person.
Is there a trend you see as United Way connecting with so many different social service agencies as to what services people really need the most now, just say in the past few months?
Well, in the past few months, in the past few years, the main services that people are looking for are basic kinds of services. They need help with financial assistance. They need help with food. They need places to live. Affordable housing, of course, is a major problem in this area. So it's all the basic needs kinds of issues.
And that isn't really changing too much.
No, not at all, and probably won't for a long time. So as long as we can continue to provide information about either what is available or what isn't available, because a lot of people get shuffled from one place to the next in terms of trying to find service, and sometimes it's just helpful for people to know that there isn't any assistance for security deposits or rent assistance or food or whatever. They can at least go from there and make other plans or make other choices about what to do next.
David, we talked about this a little bit before, but maybe in some more detail now, about training volunteers at Catholic Charities to use the equipment that you've got.
Personally, in my office, I'd like to mention one thing that maybe was not communicated at the beginning quite correctly. The bulletin board system is one of my part-time projects. It represents about 3 hours a week of my work. There's two separate computers. There's a Novell network system, which is a network of PCs. And there's also the electronic bulletin board, which is accessible via modems. So most of my time goes to working for the Refugee and Immigrant Services Office for the network that we run on that server.
Okay.
Yeah, there is I deal on a limited level with the agencies to help them, and I'm always available to them on the phone if they need help. The members of I support, and my experiences that I've had with other agencies are usually the contacts and the people that work with the computers at a particular location that's accessing the system. Sometimes there'll be two people at one agency. Sometimes there'll be one person just doing the actual computer work. So my experience has just been in that fashion.
Our number is 594-8255. We have an open line. It's time for you to call. We're talking about volunteering. We're talking about service to the community. We're talking about organizations, some of which have been around for many, many decades. Catholic Charities is celebrating its 75th year in San Diego this year. Perhaps you're involved in one of these organizations as a volunteer. Perhaps you're on staff and trying to find ways to make resources go a little bit farther, staff and resources, and also facilitating basic communication. And what kind of money is involved and what you can expect from donations. Go ahead and call us at 594-8255. That's 594-TALK. David, what is Macro International?
Macro International is a company in Washington, as I understand it with my exposure to them, that has come to San Diego and is working on a project which is supposed to be the Community Services Workstation, as I understand it, which would what they're showing us is that Washington has a computer system that lets them do audio-video conferencing, and that they have a database system that tracks the clients on a large computer. What I've been shown so far has been meetings where we show what our current resources are. I haven't seen it function yet, or I haven't seen something that we don't already have or could just go by. But it sounds very promising what they've set up in Washington.
Macro is a consulting firm that has been working with a number of colleges, Howard University School of Social Work, as well as Rice University and Baylor School of Medicine. And what they have developed is a software program that runs in a Windows environment, which makes it very accessible for everyone to use, that would allow agencies to connect on a large network, that would allow agencies to share information about services, also about clients, etc. What this would mean is the building of an entire infrastructure in terms of a communications network that would bring agencies together in a new way. And it would allow agencies to share information about clients very rapidly, including, as David mentioned, video conferencing capability. So, for instance, you could be in another location and David and I could be together and we could video conference with you and talk about your situation and provide you with referrals and call up information from another agency or the education system or whatever that would allow, this whole seamless access to information. It would be a huge leap for the social service system to move into the 21st century with this kind of technology, because the whole video conferencing technology is just, just out of the bag in terms of capability. So it would provide very extraordinary access to agencies or anyone that would be working with people that would need, information shared across some sort of network. There are a lot of barriers involved in developing this kind of project.
Sounds very expensive, for one thing.
Well, they're looking at doing this on a more national approach, which would allow them to buy equipment at a bulk rate. Or actually, it would allow them to help us purchase this equipment at a bulk rate. This would be equipment that the local community would have to purchase. So either agencies or through grants or whatever process we develop as far as finding funding for this, it would have to be done on a local, from local funding. One of the major barriers, though, is client confidentiality, and that has always been a barrier for social service agencies collaborating with each other.
That's what I was thinking, because it sounds like if so much information is available so widely, so quickly, you wonder what's being leaked out of not only your own data banks, but actually those who have computers in their homes who are linked up to the system.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are always fears associated with that. This system allows the client to determine what information can be shared about them with anyone. So a client could say they don't want anyone to know about their visit to whatever the agency is that they're with, but they could also have any of that information released all across the network. So if it would enable the client to get services, it might be the best way to coordinate their services. But again, they could also restrict their information being shared across the network.
This is another kind of philosophical question, but how does United Way feel about something like this, which is so comprehensive and such a vast network of communication that it could almost start to exist with United Way kind of off to the side rather than at the center anymore?
Well, United Way's mission is to increase the organized capacity of people to care for one another. And so as part of that mission, being able to problem solve at a community level is always something that we strive for. So we're very involved in this process, and whether this is the end product that we choose is still yet to be, it's a community decision. There are a lot of people involved in this whole process. But whether this particular project that we're working on right now is what we end up doing is still yet to be known. But the whole process of doing collaboration and bringing people together to solve problems is one of the major goals that United Way works on an ongoing basis.
David, what are the possible scenarios for moving into a system like this, and maybe just a blue sky suggested timeline?
Well, as a timeline, I was going to mention, she was talking about the audio-video conferencing.
Yes.
Some of those technologies are coming at the end of this year to a reachable level. For example, audio-video conferencing cards announced from Intel would let you have a 386 with a card inside for audio-video conferencing and the whole setup for a PC for about $2,000, which right now would cost you about $5,000. So the price is coming down really dramatically now that the manufacturers are seeing what the trends are and what people are going to want, or are using at the current and would like to have. So with the prices coming down and with the people wanting more and more of it, it will be a good opportunity for us to get into that at a much more cost-effective level.
Let's take a call at 594-8255. My guests in studio are Mary Grosse, Director of the Resource Center of United Way. She's also current president of the California Alliance of Information and Referral Services. She's in charge of putting out United Way's Community Service Directory directions. Also, David Almada is computer coordinator for Catholic Charities of San Diego, and he's going to be leading a demonstration this afternoon between 4 and 5 o'clock at Catholic Charities on Mission Gorge Place, a demonstration of Internet services, email, audio-video conferencing, and international resources. We'll give a number out a little bit later if you want to participate in that, but call us first at 594-8255 as you see social service agencies altering the way they think about themselves and also increasing the services that they're able to provide with maybe not too much extra staffing, maybe not too much extra money. Call us at 594-8255. Let's speak now with Jerome in Chula Vista. You're on These Days.
Morning, Dan. Thanks for the opportunity.
Morning.
I have a question for Mary, and that is, I know that you probably have other medical services on the network, but my main question is, are dental social services available on network now or through your agency?
Dental services meaning...
if someone needed, let's say I was someone who knew of someone who needed dental services and they weren't able to afford it, would I be able to access the network and possibly find something for this person?
The
Or
current
would you be able to?
we have that information, and the current information that we collect is providers who accept Medi-Cal. So
Okay.
if this was not a provider accepting Medi-Cal, we wouldn't have that information. The information is not available on the network at this time. You would have to call InfoLine to get that referral.
Info line. Where would the person be referred to the dental society maybe or something like that?
Perhaps. It depends on, what particular service they're looking for. But that is a very common referral.
And without a need for Medi-Cal, it's pretty much it wouldn't be any different than just looking up a dentist in the phone book. Essentially.
Correct.
And if you want a referral from the dental society, that's fine too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I was thinking that maybe there are some, maybe there is a network of providers out there who do provide some services, on a social basis. And I was just wondering if anyone had looked into that, if maybe they were compiling any information on, because I'm sure it is probably one of the highlights of your referrals, or people inquiring. But if you hear any other information on it, my number is with the station there, and you can give me a call.
Oh, fine. We'll save that and pass that on. Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for the call. Our number is 594-8255. David Almada is computer coordinator for Catholic Charities of San Diego, and Mary Grosse is director of the Resource Center of United Way of San Diego. We're talking about social service agencies, nonprofits, and how they've existed for a very, very long time with pretty much the same mission, certainly fulfilling the same urgent needs among their clients in the community, and yet the landscape is changing a little bit. We can't think of Escondido and Temecula and Encinitas as necessarily separate entities from downtown San Diego anymore. We need better communication, and it's right on the verge of arriving. In some cases, it's actually already arrived. Perhaps you've taken advantage of one of these systems and made a call. Call us at 594-8255 now. Let's take another call now, actually, and speak with Jim in South Bay. You're on these days.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I'm consumer chair for actually the Ryan White monies coming into San Diego, and I'm consumer chair for the HIV Care Coalition and the HIV Planning Council. However, I no longer am with a specific agency, and I was wondering, for example, at this conference, this thing at the Catholic Charities this afternoon, how individuals, I have a modem, I really don't know too much about how to get onto internet and all those kinds of things, how an individual could access as opposed to nonprofit agencies.
David?
Well, at the meeting, I do have an extensive collection. I started clipping back in March of '93 whenever I saw a story about internet and all the papers. So I will have a collection there available that shows, how to get on, local numbers in San Diego that have access to internet and so forth. So it's more than a little bit more than just for nonprofits at this particular meeting. That information is available through several sources, though. The Inter-NIC, which is one of the groups that has a list about new computer resources available through the internet, prints out a listing of numbers that is available. If there's interest for that, I could forward that to the station here, and maybe they can mention the names of the actual providers here in San Diego that you can get access to.
We also have our audience services department that you can call at any time, and we send over all information that goes out over our program here over there.
Okay.
So that there's maybe a 24-hour delay on that.
All right.
Pretty quick.
And what's that called at your station?
Audience services. I don't have the number right in here with
Audience
me, but it's
Okay. It just seems to me, especially in AIDS, there's a lot of people out there who are relatively educated and are living a long time and do have computers in their homes, and a lot of information could be helpful to them as consumers, and sometimes this information seems to be directed maybe towards agencies instead of individuals too. I don't know how true that is, but there tends to be that.
Well, that's an issue I want to get into, but first let's have David respond directly.
I thought of something that a previous gentleman that was on our show mentioning the online user group. would be an excellent opportunity for you, because the Computer Society is open to the public. They have meetings on the third Saturday of every month, and they talk about these issues, and they tell you how to get connected through your modem to internet and so forth. And there's special interest groups that they have, and those are free. You can also become a member of the Computer Society and so forth. But for the general public that's not a nonprofit agency, you can access my system. My computer system, or the bulletin board, is only for nonprofits. So you would want to pursue that route.
And Jim, while you're still on the line, I have been handed our audience services number at KPBS. That's an information resource that we set up recently, that we try to collate and coordinate all of the thousands of names and addresses and the phone numbers that we give out on a daily basis, at least on this show, and also everything else on TV and radio. And that's 594-6983.
6983.
But for something on today, you better wait till tomorrow.
Okay.
It takes a while to fax it over there, basically.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Jim. Actually, well, let me reintroduce the two of you again. Mary Grosse is director at the Resource Center of United Way of San Diego. David Almada is computer coordinator for Catholic Charities of San Diego. He'll be giving a demonstration this afternoon. Our number is 594-8255. We have time in the rest of the hour. We have an open line. We're waiting for your telephone call. There will be time for you to get through before the end of the hour at 594-8255. We're talking about how new technology, the so-called information superhighway being a part of that, I suppose, is affecting the way nonprofits, charities, religious organizations do their business, but also how they think of themselves. That's 594-8255. Now, what advantages do nonprofit agencies have with respect to access to information? Mary?
The information we collect on services being provided is public domain, and so anyone can access that information whenever they need to. But as far as advantages, that's a good question. I've never really thought about that.
Now, David, this afternoon with your demonstration, it is really essentially a demonstration for those involved in nonprofit organizations, but it's not exclusively limited to those people.
No, it's mostly for. It is, though, mostly for nonprofit agencies. I targeted this meeting for that purpose, to inform them about the system. I usually have 6 or 7 people always show up at a meeting, and they say, I had no idea there was a bulletin board out there and stuff, and they, and they're all excited and they want to talk more about it and everything. But I am limited on resources. It is supported through the users, and I target a certain specified amount of time, so I want to have a meeting once or twice a year, and then inform everyone at the same time instead of being on the phone talking about it over and over and over.
No, that's why we're here.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's what I wanted to mention that.
What is the interface between the government, city and county agencies, and Catholic Charities particularly?
Well, the city and the city of San Diego and the county of San Diego and Catholic Charities formed a partnership back in 1989 to establish the computer system. The city and the county provided some software and some hardware help, and 2 full-time employees to set the system up. And Catholic Charities provided space for the system to be located, and also phone lines so people could call in and be able to access the system.
What was the city's interest in that?
Well, it was initially started, it is my understanding, because I wasn't present at the very beginning of the system, but it was my understanding that it came out of a regional task force or agencies that were working to help the homeless, and its main focus was to help the homeless population and the at-risk population as well, as people that are soon to be homeless, that we don't want to be homeless.
Yeah.
And that was what originally drove it into creation. And from there, it's spanned different interests that agencies have and different type of clients that they serve. So it's just we've added different sections, or you would call it on our system a topic section, which is where you go into a particular area and you hit enter and you're into the area for bed availability, or you have a little section for volunteers and you would go into that little area and hit enter, and then you have just a little area for volunteer issues and stuff like that.
Is this fairly common among the various United Way agencies, the agencies that you deal with?
Yes and no.
Okay, fair answer.
It is common as far as agencies that use it. The original grant provided for 25 agencies to be up on the bulletin board, and at that time, I believe most of them engaged in terms of getting the modem and getting all set up. But this was probably 4 or 5 years ago when social service agencies were still real untechnical, I guess, in terms of they weren't using technology to its capacity at that point.
Well, they
in time.
probably didn't recognize their ability to do it. Buy a computer? Are you kidding? We don't have a desk.
Right, absolutely. And so I think at that time it kind of waned in terms of its effectiveness and how agencies were going to use it. The original effort was and I think what we've seen is kind of a peak and valley in terms of we were in the valley and now we're coming up to the peak in terms of people using the network and using it to its capacity.
Is it just a matter of people's perception of being unfamiliar with that kind of technology, not being up to speed on just technical things in general, or is there something else? Has there been some obstacle?
I would say one of the obstacles is that, and I know I feel it and we experience it on a daily basis, because you feel so much pressure to work with the people that need help, you don't allow yourself to have time to learn some of these new technologies that would make your job easier in the long run.
Right, like, don't bother me with something that will help me.
Right.
I'm too busy.
Right, and it's a constant struggle for people in social services. And so, one of our goals is, again, to try and provide people access to information in as easy a way as possible so that they can spend the valuable time that they have in working with clients. So I think that's part of the problem is the struggle in terms of there's a lot to learn. And the information about software and technology changes so rapidly, it's very difficult to even, begin to keep up.
Is there a sense that, and getting back to the basic philosophical issue of the way the social service agency thinks of itself, that in the future, a little storefront agency that has a few beds will see those beds going to people brought in from just all over every place rather than those in the neighborhood, and may feel that they're missing a part of their mission somehow, that their mission really was to serve, down from block A to block B, and that's what we do. And yet, because they're tied into a network, they're starting to get people from just all over the place. And it's a valuable service. You can't argue with that when you provide a bed for somebody who needs it. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, maybe a very small agency might feel like they're missing some of their mission somehow. Is that a danger?
I don't know if it's a danger. I certainly hope it's not a place where we get to in terms of, I see technology as an aid to the provision of service, not to the exclusion of service. And so I think people will still have that sense of working with people hand in hand and helping them solve their problems. And I think living in a major metropolitan area such as San Diego, we don't necessarily have that same storefront feeling anywhere we go, as far as, many people don't even know their neighbors, much less, what their community is doing. So I hope that the social service system will still have that capacity and that feeling of the community.
On the bright side, though, that makes San Diego sound as an ideal place to set up an information superhighway, because we're basically set up that way already. We're not destroying anything to build something else.
If we've done it before, we can do it again.
Yeah. David, could you look a little bit into the future and tell us either what's next technologically, or what will start to happen to Catholic Charities once all of the things that we've talked about actually get fully up to speed?
Well, my previous prediction was the internet back in May. So I don't want to.
That's been totally fulfilled.
I don't want to start a ricochet effect here. I did want to mention that we were mentioning about how it affects the agencies. I did a programming for the Wilson Fish Demonstration Project which allowed us to save a week's worth of time we used to spend sticking a form in the typewriter, typing in the check number, and printing checks, and retyping the names onto the computer that did the checks and printed the checks. I wrote a program some time back that does all that from one database. It's one huge database that from there is accessed via modem from the downtown accounting department. They're able to print the checks from our server without having to retype all of that. It prints reports, it totals, it separates by accounts and so forth. That used to all be done by hand in the past because we didn't have, the capabilities to do that back then, and it was so much hard work. It affects the agencies because they do have a lot. As an example, Wilson Fish has a lot more time available for the caseworkers to work with the clients and actually spend more time with the clients, what their needs are and what their issues, instead of filling out forms and paperwork and so forth, which is valuable. I got to admit, we have to print it, but spending a lot of time rewriting that same name could take up a lot of the caseworker's time. Also, I wanted to mention, to answer your question about what I see for the future, there has been a lot of attention to internet. Now that there's all this attention, you're going to see a lot of attention to mail gateways, which is a way for a existing network. Let's say United Way has AS400. It's a way to provide United Way, all of the users on their network, access to internet mail, for instance, so they can send short messages back and forth to different people. That's going to be the next growing step for the computers, having that gateway available, and that's something that our computer system does at Catholic Charities, and it's one of the tools that I think will be very valuable to the electronic bulletin board system and to all the agencies, because if someone does have a network and they already have like Novell or whatever kind of network they have, there are ways to connect those and use that as a resource so they don't have to pay for a connection to internet and so forth. It's already there available to them.
I'd like to thank you both for joining me today.
Thank you very much.
My guests have been David Almada, Computer Coordinator for Catholic Charities in San Diego. He'll be leading a demonstration of Internet services, email, audio-video conferencing, and international resources this afternoon from 4 to 5 at Catholic Charities on Mission Gorge Place. For more information on that, call 287-9454. Mary Grosse is Director at the Resource Center of United Way of San Diego. She's also current President of the Alliance of Information and Referral Services. The KPBS Audience Services number is 594-6983. These days on KPBS Radio, I'm Dan Irwin.